Some make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question, but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, in the end is right. I hope you have the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind. Hang it on a shelf of good health and good time. Tattoo some memories and dead skin on trial. For what it's worth, was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, in the end is right. I hope you have the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you have the time of your life.
Good morning, Shepaug Valley High School. My name is Ken Singleton, and I'm honored to welcome you to the annual Memorial Day Assembly honoring Major Stephen Reich. It is because of people like Stephen and the soldiers of his battalion that we are able to attend school, go to work, practice different religions, and even play sports. As you sit here today, remember that Stephen's story represents hundreds of thousands of service members who have lost their lives for our freedoms. Enjoy the assembly, and go Spartans.
morning. Welcome to one of the most important celebrations that Shepaug is honored to attend each year. A celebration of the life of Stephen Reich and a celebration of what he gave to our community. Please join me as I welcome our choir.
I welcome you to please stand and join us in the singing of the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the hope of the brave?
Good morning. There are many, many days and many, many occasions that I am honored to be your principal. This is among the most special of them. This is about a family and about a young man. You will learn more about this young man, not so much about his family, but I'm going to tell you a little bit. Answering a call to citizenship, words that we live by at Shepaug. This is a family who answered their call to citizenship and are doing so as they sit with you today. 10 years ago, they suffered a loss that most of us find unbearable. We don't like to think about it. We refer to it as the worst thing that can happen to you. Everyone would understand if this family decided to retreat into themselves, into each other, and to just share their memories among themselves. This family answered their call to citizenship. They have created memories in this community, ceremonies, and this assembly for each of you at a time when it would be easier not to do so. That's citizenship. That's the love of community. That's the love of country. They have commanded that love, and they're here with you today, even though I am quite certain it hurts to be here. Stephen answered his call to citizenship. You will meet him in a different way than you have in most assemblies today, through a documentary that was made to honor him, because we all want to honor him. You will meet a young man who you can see from a young age had fire in his eyes. And you'll hear about that in some of the people that admired him. That fire in his eyes caused him to be talented in many, many ways. You'll hear his good friend, Mr. Werkoven, refer to him as someone who got better as the going got tough. He was referring to the baseball field. Obviously, it never changed. You'll hear him referred to as someone who wanted the ball. He didn't want to sit behind on the sidelines, safe and comfortable, not having to worry about making the last out or walking the last batter. He wanted the ball. And when time came to serve his country, he wanted that metaphorical ball as well, and he took it with honor and with great, great service. You will see that this is a young man who had two distinct roads in his life as an extremely talented baseball player and as an extremely talented and gifted soldier and officer. You will see that when those two roads came together and the time came to choose, he chose to serve his country. And you'll hear his mother saying, as soon as that decision was made, he closed the door, he let it go. He made his decisions with courage. Learning requires courage. Each of you see that on posters. We talk about it. We hope to live it. You will see a family and a young man that lived that courage. You will hear his dad describe a horrible day in their lives, and yet he described it in terms of other people. We were one of the many families waiting. He didn't think about himself. He thought about others that were also waiting to know about the fate of their children. It's a terrible wait. It's an extreme sacrifice. It is why you get to disagree with me and I get to listen, and that's just the way we are. That freedom that you have to walk the halls in Shepaug, to express your opinions, to worship as you choose, to look at all the choices that happen in this life, and there are many, you get to do that because of Stephen Reich and the men who surrounded him. Because I'm painfully aware that Stephen wouldn't want me simply to say it was because of him. That's just not the way it is. He would want me to reference all of the people who give their lives and all of the people who spend their lives in service. So the challenge that you have today, because learning requires courage, is to ask yourselves, what are the things that put fire in your eyes? What do you have to do to get there? What sacrifices do you have to make? How will you answer your call to citizenship? How will you honor this man and the many men that came before him and will come after him, that allow us freedom and choice and a blanket of security? That's your challenge. I know that you will rise to that challenge in many different ways. Not everyone can fly a plane, a helicopter into danger. That's okay. What can you do? What does this story do to inspire you to answer your call to citizenship? I have every confidence that you will. But most importantly, I want you to think about the family that sacrificed for you today, because a grateful nation and this Marine mom thanks you. And I would also like you to honor this man very simply. Remember one thing, if you remember nothing else. Night Stalkers never quit. Spartans never quit. Don't you ever quit. Thank you. At this time, it's my honor to introduce one of Shepaug's favorite sons, Mike Kirsten.
That's a tough act to follow there, geez. Thank you, Principal Gallo, and thank you all, and welcome to what is now the 10th presentation of the Major Stephen Reich Memorial Award, where we will recognize an outstanding individual who demonstrates character, service, leadership, and achievement while here at Shepaug and within the community. It is really hard to believe it's been 10 years, and if you look at the video, we capture those 10 years, or we capture his life before he left us far too early. And it's not just about Stephen Reich, as Principal Gallo alluded to. It's really about you, the Shepaug students, and that's really why we are here today. Amongst many of the honors that have been bestowed upon him, and it's quite a list, and quite a list of accomplishments, there's no doubt if you knew Stephen Reich that this would rank among the most that he'd be proud of at the top of that list because of his affection for his community, his family, his classmates, his teammates, and being a Shepaug Spartan. We honor not only him, but we honor you guys today, and we will honor the recipient of this award. As always, before we get to our main speaker, we have a few special things that we want to accomplish today, but I'd always like to recognize a few people that are with us and are participating in the ceremony. I want to start with Mr. Ken Singleton, the gentleman who welcomed us this morning. For those that don't know, you may recognize him as a familiar voice and image from the New York Yankees. He's a broadcaster for the Yes Network. He was a 14-year Major League veteran, 3-time All-Star, winning the World Series in 1983. And we want to thank the Yes Network and Mr. Singleton for sharing that warm welcome this morning. To Mr. Scarola and the chorus, I mention it every year, the musical talents you only add to this ceremony. And if we ever need to tone down Mr. Scarola's intensity, I guess we just have to give him a guitar. And to members of the community, some have been here each and every year, and veterans that are among us, we thank you for coming and supporting us. We also have past recipients of this award that have come back and haven't forgotten. And to members of Stephen's family, his mother and father, Ray and Sue Reich, his sister Megan, and Megan's son and daughter, Owen and Semi, we appreciate you being here. We'd like to direct your attention to the big screen. I'd like to, Principal Gallo had mentioned the tribute that we were going to show here, and I'd like to give a little background on this tribute. The folks at Fox Sports, since the inception of 1994, have recognized men and women who have served in our armed forces. In keeping with their Warriors Among Us campaign, they've decided to produce this documentary that will share Stephen Reich's story, from his early playing days here to his career in the military, and ultimately the fateful day back in June of 2005. When the producers reached out to the Reich family, they soon realized this was not only a perfect way to honor Stephen, but to remind us all of the sacrifices that the men and women make for us each and every day. And I can attest to, speaking to both sides, that when the finished product came out, they were both ecstatic and extremely pleased with it because it was able to capture the real emotion of what not just Stephen's family, but every family goes through. And it was able to share the life and story of Stephen Reich in such a touching manner. So I'd ask if you could please direct your attention, and if you could roll the tape on that, please.
Military officials now tell ABC News that it was a rocket-propelled grenade that brought down a U.S. helicopter in a remote area of Afghanistan. At this point, their fate is unknown.
We live in Washington Depot, Connecticut. We moved here in 1980. It's very much a 19th century town.
We're an independent little town. of, as I say, about 3,500 people officially.
Stephen was a lefty from the earliest days. So he started Little League that next summer after we moved here.
I remember the Reich family moving to town. Back in those days, we used to play, it was 8 to 12 was Little League. The better ones, they played with the older kids, and I think they pitched a couple innings, and they moved him right up to the older group.
He's one of those kids who says, if I'm going to play, I'd like to have the ball. So he got the ball.
Just right after his 16th birthday, he was called upon to pitch the state championship game for his high school team.
Shepaug Valley High School looking for their third Class S state championship. The crowd starting to gather right along the railing. This is a tough out.
He didn't back down from a challenge. He welcomed a challenge, and he was at his best in those kind of games.
Ground ball third, Trowbridge. Third, succeeds it. They got him. They did it. Steve Reich, the MVP.
It's such a big occasion when you make it to the state finals. There's signs all over the place, and we have a bunch of banners around here commemorating the fact that we won.
Sometime during his sophomore year, he went to West Point. He came home from that visit, and he was just so psyched.
He saw people at West Point who were determined to become officers, and that's why you go to West Point.
You always hear West Point is supposedly, the best of the best go, and so it almost became sort of a challenge to see if I could do it, to see if I could hack it.
When he came here as a freshman, I knew that he was a special young man. I knew that he had special talents, special gifts on the baseball field, but also off the baseball field.
Number 20, Steve Reich.
Stephen's impact on the baseball team was immediate. He was our ace from the time he stepped onto the grounds at West Point. I admired the type of leader he was, the dynamic personality that drew people to him. But most of all, I loved his competitiveness. I loved his spirit. I loved the fire in his eyes. And I loved the fact that every time he was on the mound, we were going to have a great chance to be very successful that day. He set several school records in a single game, career, season record. What stands out the most to me is when the stakes were the highest, Stephen performed the best. After Stephen's sophomore year, he had a decision to make. Once a cadet enters classes their junior year, they then will have service time owed to the country for their time at West Point. Stephen certainly had options. I'm sure there were people talking in his ear that, hey, if you left, you could go into the professional ranks, you might be on a fast track to the major leagues.
2 years ago, after your sophomore year, you made a decision whether or not to stay at the academy or try to give pro ball a shot.
We just went over all the options, and we figured out that, my best deal was to stay at West Point and see this through, get my education, and then go on from there.
I think he knew that he could achieve at a very high level on the baseball field, but he also felt the desire for much, much more than that. Our cadets are here for a higher mission, and I think Stephen embodied that.
On this Memorial Day weekend, we all pray that we have sent America's sons and daughters to war for the last time. But common sense reminds us to be prepared.
When Stephen went to West Point, we were at a time of peace. Once they make that commitment, they belong to Uncle Sam. And if there is war, then they'll definitely go.
Good luck, God bless you, and God bless America.
So Stephen had a tremendous opportunity following graduation to participate for Team USA. It was recognized that Stephen was the best of the best, and he belonged on that stage.
Team USA was going to play in the World University Games in Buffalo, New York. We had seats at the opening, but they were way, way up at the top. And Team USA, of course, came last, and Stephen carried the flag, and I had to beg my way down to the field to get a picture of Stephen. I was able to get right down at field level, right at the railing, and he marched a little past, and then he turned and he saw me, and, it was great. The picture that, I'm sorry, The picture that I took is kind of one of those hi mom moments, you know.
It turned out that there was a possibility that the Army would let me out early of my commitment so I can go play ball. A couple of scouts watched me throw, and the guy for the Orioles just happened to like enough what he saw, and he ended up signing me, and here I am.
He was a very, very impressive young man. And in scouting and in sports in general, we often hear the cliche about the it factor. And when you saw Stephen Reich pitch, you knew that he had it.
It's almost every kid's dream to play in the big leagues. I mean, that's what you grow up dreaming of doing, and how many people get a chance to really live out their dreams. I'm doing it right now and having a great time doing it. You know, hopefully this little dream of mine will come true.
He pitched 2 games in the California League, and someone, I believe in the Pentagon, realized that they had invested X number of dollars in his education to learn to fly helicopters, and they informed him that he was being called back to duty in the United States military.
Not being able to pursue a career with the Orioles was a heartbreak for Stephen, but as soon as that decision was made, he closed that door and he moved on.
Stephen said, "What should I do next?" And his commander said, "You need to think about special operations. You need to think about the 160th. Once he saw the 160th, he saw a higher level, and he just jumped at it.
The 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment provides precision helicopter support to our nation's elite special operators, Army Rangers, Green Berets, Special Forces, and Navy SEALs.
You want somebody who's going to be in control. You want somebody who's confident. You want somebody who's not afraid to fail. I think those qualities that made him such a good pitcher probably helped to make him such a good pilot.
Steve was a natural leader. He was a natural pilot, a stick and rudder kind of guy. We like to say he could fly the airplane gracefully. We first deployed in September of 2001. Steve was the battle captain, ran the missions that we were conducting from Uzbekistan into Afghanistan in the early days of the war. Steve was very instrumental in controlling and leading those missions.
Let's go, guys! Everybody! Let's move! Let's really move!
As portrayed in the film Lone Survivor, Operation Red Wings, we were in Afghanistan providing support to Special Forces and Navy SEALs as they went throughout Afghanistan conducting missions to find and destroy the Taliban. The SEALs went in on a reconnaissance mission, came into heavy contact and needed to be extracted. Stephen gathered up his crew, flew out of Bagram into Afghanistan as the situation was developing. Stephen really only knew one thing that day, and that's the only one thing that he needed to know. He was going to the sound of the gunshot, and there were American lives. And Steve lived by a creed of never quit, never surrender, and never leave a fallen comrade.
I was cleaning the house, and I stopped to take a break, and I turned on the television set.
Good morning, everyone. Military officials now tell ABC News that it was a rocket-propelled grenade that brought down a U.S. helicopter in a remote area of Afghanistan. The Chinook was carrying 17 service members, including a team of Navy SEALs. At this point, their fate is unknown.
In my heart, I knew that it was my son.
We knew the helicopter was down, we knew lives were lost, and we knew we didn't get a call. And we were just one of the many, many families waiting.
I was talking to my sister on the phone, and a car pulled up. An Army captain in a green uniform got out of the car.
Came down the driveway.
I knew then
Cover your eyes, cover your eyes, there's no sun. Where is your direction? Cover your eyes, ask yourself, where is my reflection?
And I think Steve Reich, in his memory and what he lived for, really espouses the values in that last paragraph of our creed. I serve with the memory and pride of those who've gone before me, for they loved to fight, fought to win, would rather die than quit. Night Stalkers don't quit.
You always ask somebody, you know, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do here? What do you do there? And a lot of times somebody will give you an answer, oh, I want to be a CEO, I want to be a president, I just want to be Joe Schmo or whatever. If there's one thing that I'm scared of, I'm scared to death of you know, looking back on everything and saying to myself, God, I should have done this, I should have taken that extra step and made that effort and taken that chance. And I don't want to have anything missing in my life before when it's all over.
Might be a good video to show before our game every day, huh? Jeez. So as I said earlier, Fox Sports was behind this, and I'd like to recognize the two driving forces behind that production who were kind enough to fly in from California last night and surprise the Reichs this morning. If you'll join me in welcoming Vice President of Production at Fox Sports Net, Laura Mickelson, and producer at Fox Sports, Lauren Mendel. Over the last couple days, the entire faculty and student body received an email from former Shepaug and West Point alum Drew Barkowitz. Some of you may remember that Drew delivered a powerful message back in 2010 as our guest speaker. He is founder and CEO of Letters.com, a global mobile application and social network that promotes, amongst many things, meaningful messages and thoughts. On the screen, you'll see an image of Major Reich. Drew has introduced this image as part of their social stamp collection honoring fallen heroes entitled We Remember. In front of me, you'll see the same image on canvas, which Drew has graciously donated to Shepaug for Principal Gallo's choosing to where to display it. Over the Memorial Day weekend, please take a moment to express your thoughts regarding freedom, service, and sacrifice on the Letters website. Drew has not forgotten his fellow veterans, he has not forgotten his fellow West Point alum, and he has not forgotten his fellow Shepaug Spartans. So I think together over the next few days, we can achieve Drew's goal of 100% participation. So Drew, thank you very much. Before we get to our guest speaker, I have one last addition here. I have a letter here I'm going to read. It's a letter that will be framed and sent to Mr. and Mrs. Reich over the next week or so. I have nothing to do with this letter other than I'm going to read it. There is a story behind it, and the appropriate people can share that with Mr. or Mrs. Reich at an appropriate time. Dated May 21st, 2015. I'm honored to add my voice to all those gathered today to pay tribute to the heroic life of Major Stephen Reich. 22 years ago, at their commencement ceremony, I told Major Reich and his fellow officers of the West Point class of 1993 that they represent the very best of the American people. Major Reich proved that every day of his life. Although he was an elite pitcher with a promising future in professional baseball, Major Reich chose instead to serve our nation. Throughout his 12 years in uniform, he approached his many dangerous missions with the highest measure of loyalty, courage, and devotion. His sacrifice to keep our nation secure and advance global peace will be forever enshrined in the annals of history in the hearts of those who loved him. This Memorial Day, I join you in honoring all the brave men and women who have fallen to make America free and strong. We are forever in their debt. Signed, Bill Clinton. And now, to our guest speaker, who really needs no introduction as he is a familiar face to all you here at Shepaug. Having begun his teaching career in 1979, mainly in the humanities department, Doug Winkle has been a mainstay here in educating hundreds upon hundreds of students. He had the pleasure of teaching Stephen in the late 80s, and he also had a brother who taught at West Point, although they never crossed paths in the classroom. For most of those teaching years, he has also been the drama director, producing countless productions on this very stage. As most of you students may not realize at this time, it's usually long before you're gone, or after you're gone from this school, the impact that teachers have on us, coaches, administrators. We don't really realize the life lessons they teach until it's, I wouldn't say too late, but we're already out of this building. Doug Winkle is one of those guys who taught life lessons in and out of the classroom over many years. He has dedicated his life to educating, shaping, and teaching you not only in the classroom, but also outside the classroom. I had the pleasure of also having Mr. Winkle as a teacher, and I was speaking with Scott Workoven, and it's been quite a while, but a few thoughts that came to mind when I think about Doug Winkle in the classroom. He treated everyone fairly. He tried to get you out of your comfort level, and he tried to get you to think out of the box. He had a great sense of humor, and again, you'll probably never appreciate it until you're gone from this school. Please join me in welcoming one of your own, Doug Winkle.
Oh yeah, it's me. Greetings to all of you. Character, service, leadership, achievement. You don't want to have anything missing in your life, he said, when it's all over. No regrets, no explanations, no excuses. Live a life worth knowing about. Character, service, leadership, achievement, and I'm going to add one more characteristic of Stephen's, and that's courage, already mentioned several times. Stephen walked the same halls that you do. He took classes like you do, sat in the same classrooms as you do, joked around with his buddies, played sports like many of you. Stephen is you. Character, service, leadership, achievement, and courage. I had Stephen in a class called Great Books. The course was constructed around the great works of literature called the Western Classics. Books like The Odyssey, The Inferno by Dante, Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce, Metamorphoses by Franz Kafka. These were some of the works we read in that class. And we read them in order to answer two simple questions, and some of you may be familiar with them. Who are you? What are you doing here? I can't be certain, but I'm pretty sure Stephen got the answers wrong on that first time around. And he wasn't afraid of failing. He knew that failing showed that you tried and that you get to try again. The answers most students gave at the time was something like, well, I'm a student and I'm here to get an English credit. Well, those answers aren't necessarily wrong. Their incompleteness made them shallow and without any vision. It took us a whole year to figure out who we were as human beings and that we were here to develop our sense of character, service, leadership, achievement, and courage. After Stephen graduated from Shepaug, as you know, he took his answers to West Point. My brother, as you know, was a professor at West Point in mathematics, something perhaps Stephen really wasn't interested in. He never had Stephen in his class, but he recalls knowing about him and hearing of him, about Stephen's prowess not only on the pitcher's mound, but also of his growing sense of character, service, leadership, achievement, and courage. The PBIS initiative we were introduced to a few weeks ago asks us to focus on our right behavior and attitudes. It seeks to reward the best of us when we demonstrate care for ourselves and others. I think Stephen would have accepted that challenge as natural and compelling. Stephen cared for himself and others. He respected himself and others. He already had the most important quality which allowed him to excel at honorable behavior. He had the courage to do so. That courage gave him his character. That courage gave him the desire to serve. That courage gave him the ability to lead. That courage allowed him to achieve. That courage is in you. In East-West class, we watch an anime movie called Spirited Away by a director named Miyazaki. The story is of a little girl who at first displays all the characteristics of a spoiled brat. She's frightened, and then her parents are turned into swine. And to get them back, she must face really scary and horrible tests. Eventually, through patience, practice, good friends, confidence, love, and sheer perseverance, she gains enough courage to face the final test and restore her parents back to human form. In the same class, we watch another movie. In it, 3 college students face a formidable foe in the shape of an uncompromising director whose single goal is to make successful engineers. The only goal one should have is success at all costs. One of the 3 students has the courage to reach for excellence instead, not success. You might ask naturally, well, what's the difference between excellence and success? Well, I'd ask you, who would you rather have sell you a car? A successful car salesman or an excellent car salesman? Whose bridge would you rather cross? A successful engineer or an excellent engineer? Who would you rather have perform surgery on you? A successful surgeon or an excellent surgeon? Stephen, I think, would never accepted anything but excellence, as you've seen a lot of evidence so far. He recognized if you chase excellence, success will follow. But to do so would require courage. With courage, you can demonstrate your character, discover the rewards of service, develop your leadership, direct your achievement. There is among you right now a group of your classmates ready to help you gain the courage you need. You know who you are. And to celebrate the courage you show. See, we all want a community of courage. We all recognize it is better for ourselves and those around us when our attitude is strong and confident and caring, when our behavior is positive and helpful and respectful. We all recognize sometimes it takes a little courage to practice the character, service, leadership, and achievement of Stephen Reich. I'd like to demonstrate something along with the tokens that we're talking about, a little gesture that might help us all reward and encourage courage. Megan, could I have you come up here? Megan Reich, Stephen's sister. It's a really simple little gesture. And many of you, some of you know this gesture. And I'm going to ask you to pass it along once you see what it is, so that the entire audience gets a chance to do it. Ready? Courage. That's all it is. So, if those of you who know what it is would pass it along, I'll wait until the whole audience has done it. Thanks. There's Rodriguez stepping 4 seats away to get to somebody. Yeah. So now you can do this anytime you need some courage or want to reward some courage. And it's just a simple little gesture. So now that you know the courage bump and you've demonstrated it to each other, I hope that you find it in yourself to share it in this community of courage. And so thank you. Courage in the name of Stephen Reich to you all.
Good morning. I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us for the presentation, the 10th presentation of the Stephen Reich Memorial Award. And I'd like to thank Mr. Winkle for agreeing to share his thoughts with us today. Who are you? What are you doing here? I remember when Mr. Winkle asked those questions, I thought, oh, this is going to be easy. And then I got it wrong, and I said, what am I really doing here? Those questions have stayed with me since leaving that class and then leaving Shepaug as a student, far more than the 16-year-old who sat in that class would ever care or want to admit. But as I was talking about and discussing today's assembly with Mr. Winkle, those questions kept coming back. For me, some of those answers have changed, they've evolved. Some of the simple responses might be I'm a father and husband, a teacher and coach. I'm able to do these things and do them freely in the manner I choose because of the men and women like Stephen who sacrificed to ensure we have our freedom and our liberty. So I'm also a grateful friend. And grateful citizen of this country. What I'm doing today, and what I hope we're all doing today, is remembering one of our own who cared so deeply for our country, he was willing to go into harm's way. But this is about so much more than Stephen Reich. His name is on this award. His life is the focus of the documentary we saw. His story is compelling, and it is very worthy of being shared. As you saw, he had hopes and dreams, fears and doubts, as you do, and really as we all do. And we've heard this before this morning, and I feel it's absolutely important to remember, and Stephen would absolutely want us to remember. He was one of 8 Army Night Stalkers. He was one of 16 U.S. servicemen, and he was one of 19 men killed on the 28th of June, 2005, as all 16 men on the helicopter and 3 Navy SEALs they were going to rescue gave their lives in a remote region of Afghanistan. They gave their lives there so we can live free here. We have an opportunity on Monday, as we do today, to reflect on the true meaning of Memorial Day and the cost of our freedom. It's important to remember all of those who have given their lives in the service to our country. Each of them had hopes and dreams. Each of them left behind family, friends, and communities. And all of their stories are worth telling. And they have all earned our gratitude. Think of the things that you enjoy. Think about what it would be like if you couldn't do them. It's hard to imagine. There are places in this world where people do not have the freedom we often take for granted. And as we know, the purpose of this award is to remember Stephen. Let us also remember the greater purpose is that in honoring him, we honor all of those who've served and sacrificed for our country. Over the past few days, several of you have had conversations with me about this award. I appreciate these conversations, and you've shown me how meaningful that this is certainly to us that knew him, but to all of you. You've demonstrated what Mr. Winkle means by his courage bump. So many of you have had the courage to speak up and say things like, "This is what I look forward to." I drew. That was good timing right there, thanks. This is the assembly I look forward to most each year, or I can't wait to see who gets this award, when you could easily have just said nothing. Or how Christian Stewart had the courage to be the first Shepaug student to post a letter with this stamp on the letter's website. He wrote how he was, quote, motivated after hearing about Major Reich's ability to put a smile on the faces of his peers, his selflessness, responsibility, respect, honor, and bravery, unquote. So while this award is given to one student, it serves as an example to all of us of a life well lived, an example of character, service, leadership, and achievement, and courage. Thank you. And at this, I would like to ask Stephen's sister Megan to come back on stage for the award presentation. This student is described as having a great sense of duty, who's always willing to help others. This individual is a strong civic leader who consistently sets a positive example. This student is described as thoughtful and energetic, who brings good humor and maturity to everything he does. It is my pleasure to present the 2015 Stephen Reich Memorial Award to Sebastian Taylor.
Wonderful job. Thank you very much. Congratulations to Sebastian Taylor, and congratulations to all the Spartans that are here today. We'd like to thank you as that concludes our program. I'm not sure what period they're going to, but they'll figure it out. Thank you very much.